a strong pinching sensation with each suck, a stinging sensation that is more prominent at times and less prominent other times, or a strong vacuum that's a little bit weird, or there can be blisters and even worse, an open wound. Let's go through some of the different scenarios and see which one you're experiencing. A lot of people say that breastfeeding is not supposed to be painful, but clinically I would say that 80 to 90% of women I see experience some sort of nipple tenderness in the first few days of breastfeeding, and it may or may not be accompanied with nipple trauma. Now, keep in mind that I'm a lactation consultant, so usually women that are for me to review are experiencing some sort of challenges with breastfeeding. So the rate of nipple pain that I see is probably a lot higher. Hi, welcome to Lactation with Amy. In this video, we're going to go through whether your nipple pain is normal and what you can do to make it feel better. Why do my nipples get tender when breastfeeding? Imagine you're doing some sort of repetitive exercise, whether it is a tiny bicep workout, which is slightly different because it involves muscle, or imagine someone is gently pinching your forearm. Now, there's absolutely no pain or discomfort right now, but let's imagine someone doing this to you 20 to 30 minutes at a time, every 2 to 3 hours and 8 to 12 times a day, with really not much of a long break in between. Chances are, this part of your skin will end up with some discomfort. A lot of the time, nipples can experience some tenderness and discomfort from being stimulated so often and being not used to the stretching and pulling sensation in the first 2 weeks. How to differentiate whether this is normal or not is by assessing the degree and level of discomfort, assessing the shape and the look of your nipple after feeds, and looking out for damage after feeding as well. There are a few conditions that can cause nipple pain either before or after breastfeeding as well. Today we're just going to focus on tenderness during breastfeeding. Now, during the feed, in the first 20 to 30 seconds, a lot of women describe some discomfort and some pulling pain, and then it settles and becomes comfortable. Whereas for some people, that pain never settles after 30 seconds to 2 minutes, and they continue to experience a strong pinching sensation with each suck, a stinging sensation that is more prominent at times and less prominent other times, or a strong vacuum that's a little bit weird, like a strong pull, but it's not painful. Usually when we see women that experience the strong pinching sensation, it can be reduced or disappear through adjusting the positioning of baby and looking for that open gape before baby gets on. Some stinging sensation usually indicates some form of nipple trauma on the tip of your nipple. So it can be a graze, or you can see a part of your skin and your nipple is sort of coming off, or there can be blisters and even worse, an open wound with a bleeding nipple. Let's go through some of the different scenarios and see which one you're experiencing. If you experience tenderness in the first 20 to 30 seconds of breastfeeding and it settles down, you don't have bleeding nipples, you don't have any visible nipple damage, and you can tolerate breastfeeding, the pain doesn't get worse every day, chances are this tenderness you're experiencing is probably within normal. Hopefully that settles down for you when baby is 2 weeks and older. Once our nipples are used to this breastfeeding, stretching, and pulling sensations, and once you feel more confident with breastfeeding and handling baby. Now, if your nipples look perfectly round after baby feeds and there are no damage that you can see, no bleeding, your pain is really uncomfortable to a point where you can't really tolerate it, and the thought of breastfeeding is really scary for you, there may be some underlying issues going on, so I would highly recommend you to speak with your local lactation consultant to have further investigations to see how we can best support you reach your breastfeeding goal. Now, if you experience nipple pain sometimes and it feels better other times, for example, you might be breastfeeding in a chair during the day and it feels mostly very comfortable for you, you don't have any issues. And other times, say you are breastfeeding in the bed reclined at night and it is more painful for you. So if you've noticed that sometimes it's more painful and sometimes it's pain-free, chances are you're probably positioning baby in a slightly different angle, or you might be doing something slightly different with the positioning without realizing exactly what it is. So we will go through that briefly at the end of the video. Now, if you have nipple damage, I want you to think about whether the damage has worsened over time or whether this is existing damage that has not worsened. If this is damage that's worsened over time, I want you to compare the shape of your nipple before and after a breastfeed. So have a look at how your nipple looks before baby latches. We'll check the nipple straight after the feed because it can quickly go back to its original shape. So check the nipple after a feed. You want it to be nice and round the way it normally looks. Now, if your nipple comes out and is pinched or squeezed or in a lipstick shape, Over time, where that pinch is probably will end up with some skin damage or grazes, and your pain might worsen over time. This is also when we need to look at the optimal positioning and attachment of the baby and making sure baby has a wide open gate before baby latches. What do we do with nipple pain? The best and easiest thing you can do is to express a drop of milk or colostrum out after every single breastfeed. Dab that colostrum of milk on wherever the damage is or wherever it is tender, and letting that air dry between feeds. Also, getting it exposed to some filtered sunlight can be good for healing. All the antibodies and rich protein and all the good stuff in your milk will help speed up the healing of any damage and also work to prevent any infections on your damages. Optimal positioning. Today we're going to cover 3 things about the optimal positioning of baby, which usually applies for all breastfeeding positions. So the first thing we're going to look at is for baby's head, shoulder, and hip to face the same direction. This seems pretty straightforward, but when you have a baby that's hungry and moving around and got the mouth wide open ready to feed, we tend to focus on just matching the open mouth to the breast and forgetting about what the rest of the body is doing. I'm going to give you an example. So now imagine that we're sitting here, our head, shoulder, hip, we're facing the same direction and we're trying to eat. This can be a really comfortable eating position. And I can also drink properly when my head is aligned with the rest of my body. Now imagine someone offering me the water and puts it here and expects me to reach for it. So what I'll need to do is turn my head around and lean over and drink. And I'll have one sip and I'll probably be like, no, thank you, that was enough, because I'm not comfortable. When I am in this position, I can't actually produce an even suction on the straw properly, and I'm getting some straining on my lower back. So it is definitely not a comfortable position. So same thing with baby when we're trying to breastfeed. A lot of the time, I see that baby's head is facing the nipple because we're trying to get them to breastfeed. But the rest of the body, so the hip could probably be flinged out like this. Instead of feeding baby in this position, it would be really beneficial to move baby tummy to tummy and bring the hip in so that the hip, shoulder, and head are facing the same direction. This applies whether you are feeding in a straddle position. Do you see how everything is aligned here? We don't want baby to be in a straddle position and turn the head to the side to reach the breast. This applies when we do a cradle hold, when we do a cross cradle hold, because we're actually supporting the hip here to have baby face the same direction. Or it also applies when we do a football hold. If you're doing a football hold like this and baby's head is turned to the side to reach your breast, it's probably not super comfortable for you. So that's tip number 1, having baby's head, shoulder, hip to face the same direction and not reaching for the nipple by turning the head to the side or by turning the hip to the side. Number 2, now instead of baby bending the head down and reaching the nipple like this, we want baby to look up and have the head extended to have that clear airway and no restrictions for the mouth to open up and then reach the nipple. So I'll give you an example of this. Imagine I've just done sports, so I'm trying to coordinate my breathing, but I'm really, really thirsty. I'm trying to drink water. With a water bottle, I would pick it up and always gulp in this direction so that I can swallow quicker, have a clear airway, and drink the milk quicker without me being uncomfortable. Now imagine you're thirsty, you're trying to drink water, and the straw is here. So instead of drinking in this angle, I have to bend my head down, reach over, but it's really hard for me to swallow because my neck is in the way. I also have limited space here for my chin to open up, and I'm giving myself a double chin. So when a baby breastfeeds, instead of for baby to reach the nipple like this, you want the nipple more lining up with the nose and for baby to look up, open the mouth wide, and latch onto the breast like this. The angle of the mouth to the breast when baby's head is extended also helps the bottom lip to dig into the breast, which can make breastfeeding more comfortable as well. It also helps with how well and efficient they are draining the breast. So if you're experiencing any lumps and signs of plugged duct, optimal positioning is really the key. It makes you more comfortable, it makes baby more comfortable. So when we're doing a cradle hold, a lot of the time we will see moms putting baby's head into the elbow like this and holding onto the bum when they're newborns, just to feel like we have more control of baby. Often what's happening when baby's head is in the elbow is that they will be positioned too far that way, but the breast is probably sitting here, which means baby has to look down, again, reach the nipple to be able to breastfeed, which is really uncomfortable for them. So instead of baby being too far this way, you want baby to wrap around your body lining the nose to the nipple, and for baby to look up to reach the breast. This also applies when you're doing a football hold. Instead of baby being too far forward and having to bend the head down to reach the nipple, you want baby to be shuffled back, nose to nipple, and looking up to reach the breast. Tip number 3. When baby is breastfeeding, we want both cheeks symmetrically smooshed into the breast. Imagine I'm sucking on something or eating something. My suction is more likely to be an even vacuum when I'm sucking onto something like this. When I'm sucking onto something like this, I don't have that facial symmetry. I'm using different muscles to be able to do that same sucking function. And chances are I'm probably leaking some air on this side and I have more in my mouth on this side. And that uneven suction pressure can affect how your nipple feels when baby's creating that strong vacuum. An example of this in the cradle hold is to check the side. You can either put your phone or have a mirror or get your support person to have a look. Now from the side view, with baby latched onto the breast, you don't want one cheek to be touching the breast and the other cheek not to be touching the breast. Then what's happening is that baby's dragging your nipple in a certain direction. So if that's the case, you just want to guide baby's shoulder and roll the body over so that the suction pressure is even, and hopefully that feels more comfortable for you. If one cheek touches more than the other like this, see the top cheek touches more than the bottom, roll the baby over so that both cheeks are symmetrically touching the breast. Sometimes this arm just needs to come around so that there is space for both cheeks to be symmetrically touching the breast. And that wraps up my short guide to troubleshooting nipple pain. I hope you've gotten something away from this video, and hopefully one of the tips about the optimal positioning helps you and make breastfeeding more comfortable for you. Please feel free to share your own experience in the comments down below. I would love to build a community where moms can support each other, or I can be the virtual lactation consultant for some of you out there who are experiencing any challenges with breastfeeding. I'm going to put a list of breastfeeding and postnatal support groups, and if I can't help you, I really hope someone else can help you out there. Lastly, I just want to quickly mention that if your nipple is actively bleeding, if you can't tolerate the pain, if you don't have an immediate support around you and you can't tolerate breastfeeding right now, but you're not ready to give up on breastfeeding yet, there's always the option to rest your breast from breastfeeding for a little bit and hand expressing or putting the pump on to remove milk so that we're still protecting your supply while waiting for your nipples to heal to be more ready to breastfeed again. Thank you again for watching and finishing this video. Good luck and bye.